Kim Dae-ho stood in the massive hall of the Galactic Federation Council, feeling very small. The ceiling stretched so high above his head that he could barely see it. Around him sat dozens of alien beings, each one looking down at him like he was some kind of interesting bug they had found in their garden. The Velkari representative, a tall creature with blue skin and 4 arms, spoke first. His voice was deep and filled with the kind of authority that came from ruling star systems for thousands of years. "So this is the human ambassador," he said, not bothering to hide his disappointment. "How primitive." Dae-ho kept his face calm, even though anger burned in his chest. He had been a military strategist back on Earth, someone who had helped win wars and save lives. But here, in this place filled with beings who traveled between stars like humans drove cars, he was nothing more than a curiosity. "The humans wish to join our federation," announced the council speaker, a floating jellyfish-like creature whose thoughts appeared as colored lights around its body. "They have passed the basic intelligence tests and have developed faster-than-light travel. However, their technology is simple." Murmurs filled the hall. Some aliens laughed, making sounds like breaking glass or rumbling thunder. Others whispered in languages that hurt human ears to hear. Dae-ho caught fragments of their conversations through his translator device. "Look how small they are. Only 2 arms? How do they build anything? I heard they still fight wars on their own planet. Barbarians." The Nexari Collective's representative, a being made of what looked like living metal, spoke next. Its voice sounded like music played on broken instruments. "We have studied their technology. It is adequate for basic space travel, but nothing more. They use chemical rockets and nuclear fusion. We mastered such things when their star was still forming." Dae-ho wanted to speak up, to tell them about human ingenuity and determination. He wanted to explain how humans had gone from horse-drawn carts to spaceships in just a few hundred years. But the council had made it clear that he was here to listen, not to talk. The debate continued for hours. Some aliens argued that humans were too violent to be trusted. Others said they were too weak to be useful. A few suggested that humans might be good for manual labor since they seem to adapt well to different environments. "The humans have one quality that might be valuable," said a reptilian being with scales that changed color as it spoke. "They are surprisingly good at surviving in places where other species cannot. Perhaps they could be useful on frontier worlds." The Velkari representative nodded slowly. "Yes, I have heard reports. They seem to thrive in conditions that would kill most civilized beings. Hot worlds, cold worlds, worlds with dangerous weather. Like insects, they adapt to anything." Dae-ho's hands clenched into fists, but he kept them at his sides. Being compared to insects was not exactly the welcome he had hoped for when humanity first made contact with alien life. "There is also the matter of the Void Hunters," said another voice. This came from a being that looked like a walking tree, its bark-like skin covered in glowing symbols. "The attacks from beyond our galaxy have been increasing. We need buffer zones on our outer borders." The council speaker's lights pulsed in what Dae-ho had learned was agreement. "An excellent point. The humans could establish colonies in the Outer Rim. They would serve as an early warning system against future Void Hunter raids." "And if the Void Hunters destroy these human colonies," asked the metal being, "then we will know an attack is coming," replied the tree-like alien without any emotion. "The humans reproduce quickly. They can always make more colonies." Dae-ho felt sick. They were talking about his people like they were disposable tools, like human lives meant nothing at all. The debate went on, but the outcome was already clear. Humanity would be accepted into the Galactic Federation, but only as junior members. They would be given the most dangerous jobs on the most dangerous worlds. They would receive outdated technology and limited access to Federation knowledge. In return, they would provide labor and serve as a barrier between civilized space and whatever threats came from the dark between galaxies. "The decision is made," announced the council speaker finally. "Humanity will be granted associate membership in the Galactic Federation. They will be assigned to frontier development and outer rim security. The Velkari Empire will oversee their integration." The Velkari representative's 4 arms moved in what Dae-ho suspected was the alien equivalent of a shrug. "We will give them what they need to survive. Nothing more." As the council session ended, Daeho was approached by a small, furry alien who had not spoken during the meeting. It walked on 6 legs and had large, intelligent eyes. "I am sorry for this treatment," the alien said quietly, making sure no one else could hear. "My name is Kylox. I represent the Therian Commonwealth. We voted for full membership for your species." "Thank you," Daeho replied, grateful to finally hear a kind voice. "Be careful out there," Kylox warned. "The Outer Rim is more dangerous than they told you. The Void Hunters are not the only threat. There are pirates, failed colonies, and worse, things in the dark between stars." "We'll manage," Daeho said, though he wasn't sure he believed it. "I hope so," Kylox replied. "Your species has something the others do not see. I watched the recordings of your planet's history. Humans do not give up, ever. That might be more valuable than they realize." 3 months later, Daeho stood on the bridge of a human transport ship, watching as Earth grew smaller in the view screen behind them. Around him, other ships carried hundreds of thousands of volunteers heading to the Outer Rim. They were farmers, engineers, miners, and soldiers. They were people willing to leave behind everything they had ever known to build something new among the stars. "Any regrets?" asked Park Soo-jin, the chief engineer who would help establish their first colony. She was young but brilliant, someone who could look at alien technology and figure out how to make it work better. "No," Daeho said, and he meant it. "They think they're getting rid of us, sending us away where we can't bother them. But maybe that's exactly what we need." Soo-jin smiled. "Room to grow without someone looking over our shoulder every minute." "Exactly." Daeho looked out at the stars ahead of them. Somewhere out there, in the dark spaces between galaxies, things called Void Hunters waited to attack. The Federation expected humans to die fighting them, to serve as an early warning system for more important species. But humans had survived ice ages and plagues and wars that should have destroyed them. They had climbed out of caves and reached for the stars. They didn't know how to give up. "Let them underestimate us," Daeho said quietly. "We'll show them what humans can really do when we set our minds to it." The ships flew on toward the Outer Rim, carrying humanity's hopes and dreams to the edge of known space. Behind them, the Galactic Federation continued its business, confident that they had solved their human problem by sending them away. They would learn, eventually, just how wrong they were. 50 years had passed since the first human ships reached the Outer Rim, and Park Soo-jin was now an old woman with gray hair and hands that remembered every piece of technology she had ever built. She stood on the observation deck of Haven Station, the largest human settlement in their assigned space, watching cargo ships come and go like busy insects. "Still hard to believe sometimes," she said to her companion, Choi Min-ho, who was 20 years younger but had become the most respected scientist in human space. "When we first got here, this was just empty space and a few dead rocks." Min-ho nodded, his eyes following a sleek ship that bore markings from 3 different alien species. "Now we have 17 colonies, 6 major trade stations, and more refugees than we know what to do with." That was the thing the Federation had not expected. When they sent humans to the dangerous frontier, they thought they were getting rid of a problem. Instead, they had created something new. Human colonies became safe harbors for anyone running from war, disaster, or persecution. Where other species saw worthless worlds, humans saw opportunities. The first colony had been established on a planet the Federation called unsuitable for habitation. It was too hot during the day, too cold at night, and had storms that could tear apart most buildings. But humans had looked at it and seen potential. They built underground during the day and worked on the surface at night. They captured the storm energy and used it to power their cities. Within 10 years, the planet was not just habitable, but comfortable. "Commander Yoon wants to see us," Min-ho said, checking his communication device. "Something about the latest Void Hunter attack." They made their way through Haven Station's corridors, passing markets where human traders sold goods alongside alien merchants. The station was a marvel of practical engineering, built from salvaged Federation technology and human innovation. Everything was designed to be fixed, improved, or rebuilt as needed. Yoon Hae-ri was waiting for them in the command center, studying a holographic display of the local star systems. She had been a young soldier when the first ships arrived, but 50 years of frontier life had turned her into someone who could command fleets and negotiate with alien warlords with equal skill. "The Void Hunters hit the Zentari mining colony 3 days ago," she reported without preamble. "Completely destroyed it. But our early warning systems worked perfectly. We had evacuation ships there in 6 hours." Sujin frowned at the display. "That's the 4th attack this month. They're getting bolder." "Or more desperate," Minho suggested. "I've been studying the wreckage from their ships. Their technology is ancient, but it's breaking down. Whatever they're running from, it's bad enough that they're willing to raid heavily defended systems." Hey-Ree highlighted several points on the map. The Federation sent a patrol to investigate, but they stayed well back from the action. As usual, they expect us to handle the actual fighting. This had become the pattern over the decades. When Void Hunters attacked Federation space, the core worlds would send massive fleets and advanced weapons to deal with the threat. But when they attacked the Outer Rim, where humans lived, the response was always minimal. A few outdated ships, maybe some technical support, and lots of official statements about resource allocation and strategic priorities. "How many people did we save from the Zentari colony?" Sujin asked. "All of them," Hai-Ree replied with satisfaction. "Every single person. We've gotten good at emergency evacuations." That was another thing that had developed over the years. Humans had become the unofficial rescue service for the Outer Rim. When pirates attacked, when colonies failed, when natural disasters struck, it was human ships that showed up first with aid and evacuation support. They didn't do it for money or political advantage. They did it because it was the right thing to do. "There's something else," Harry continued. "We intercepted Federation communications about the attack. They're calling it a minor frontier incident in their reports. Apparently losing an entire colony and 3,000 people doesn't qualify as important news." Minho's jaw tightened. "Of course it doesn't. The Zentari aren't a major species. Just another group of refugees who found safety in human space." Sujin walked to the window, looking out at the stars. In the distance, she could see the lights of New Sol Colony on a nearby asteroid. It had been named by the Korean families who first settled there, turning a chunk of rock into a thriving community. Now it was home to dozens of species, all working together to build something better than what they had left behind. "Show me the new communication network status," she said. Harry brought up another display, this one showing a web of connections between human colonies and stations. It looked like a nervous system made of light, with information flowing instantly across vast distances. The Federation had never bothered to extend their advanced communication networks to the Outer Rim. They considered it a waste of resources for such unimportant territory. So humans had built their own, using a combination of alien technology and their own innovations. It was faster and more reliable than anything the Federation used, but they had never bothered to study it closely. "We're ready for the next phase," Sujin announced. "Kang Dong-woo has been working with the Therian Commonwealth and a few other friendly governments. They want to join our network." This was the secret project she had been working on for decades. Not just a communication system for human colonies, but a completely independent network that could connect any world that wanted to participate. Free information flow, unrestricted trade, and cooperation based on mutual benefit rather than political control. "The Federation won't like that," Minho warned. "The Federation doesn't have to know," Sujin replied. "Officially, we're just extending technical support to our allies. Unofficially, we're building something they don't understand." A young technician approached their group, carrying a datapad with an urgent expression. "Commander Yoon, we're receiving a priority message from the Federation Council." Harry took the pad and read quickly, her expression growing darker with each line. "They want to send technical assessment teams to all our major colonies. They want to study our infrastructure and technology." "What do we tell them?" Minho asked. "We tell them we'll consider their request," Harry said carefully. "And then we make sure there's nothing for them to find that we don't want them to see." This was the delicate balance humans had learned to maintain over the decades. They cooperated, enough to avoid Federation interference, but not so much that they revealed how far they had actually advanced. Let the core worlds think that humans were still struggling frontier colonists, barely surviving on the edge of civilization. The truth was very different. Human technology had advanced by leaps and bounds during their exile. When you had to make everything work with limited resources and constant threats, you got very good at innovation very quickly. Human engineers could fix anything, adapt anything, and improve anything. Their colonies were more efficient than most Federation core worlds, their ships were more reliable, and their defenses were surprisingly effective. But they kept all of this quiet. Better to be underestimated than to attract unwanted attention. "There's one more thing," the technician said, looking nervous. "The message also mentions something about educational opportunities for human children at Federation academies." The room went very quiet. Sujin felt a chill run down her spine that had nothing to do with the station's climate control. "They want our children," Hyrie said, her voice flat and dangerous. "For their own good, of course," Minho added bitterly, "to give them a proper Federation education, to help them reach their full potential." Sujin thought about her own grandchildren. Playing in the gardens of New Sol Colony, learning about engineering from human teachers and alien refugees alike. She thought about all the young people across human space, growing up free and curious and unafraid of the universe. "Over my dead body?" she said quietly. Hyrie nodded grimly. "We need to call an emergency council meeting. All colony representatives, all fleet commanders. This changes everything." As the three humans began making arrangements for what might be the most important meeting in their species' history, cargo ships continued to dock at Haven Station. Alien refugees continued to find safety in human space. And somewhere in the dark between galaxies, the Void Hunters continued their mysterious attacks, not knowing that they were about to become the least of anyone's problems. The Federation had finally pushed too far. They were about to discover what happened when you threatened the children of a species that never learned how to give up. Lim Tae-jun was 35 years old and had never seen Earth, but he could feel his human heritage burning in his chest as he stood before the Federation Council. Unlike Kim Dae-ho 50 years earlier, Tae-jun was not here to ask for anything. He was here to deliver a message. The same massive hall, the same looking down from above aliens, the same sense of being judged by beings who thought they were superior. But this time was different. This time, the human representative had come, prepared. "The Federation Council recognizes Lim Tae-jun speaking for the human colonies," announced the council speaker, its lights pulsing in colors that Tae-jun had learned meant irritation mixed with boredom. Tae-jun activated his data pad and projected a holographic display into the center of the hall. Numbers and charts appeared in the air, showing production figures, trade statistics, and colony populations. "Honored council members," he began, his voice carrying clearly through the vast space. "I come to discuss the Federation's recent demands regarding human technology and human children." Murmurs rippled through the assembled aliens. The Velkari representative, now an older being but still just as arrogant, gestured dismissively with two of his forearms. "The humans have been granted great privileges in the Outer Rim. It is time they contributed more to galactic civilization." "Contributed more?" Tae-jun repeated, and his holographic display changed to show a map of Federation space. Red dots marked Void Hunter attacks over the past 50 years. In the last 5 decades, human forces have repelled 437 Void Hunter raids. We have saved 16 Federation colonies from complete destruction. We have provided early warning for every major attack against core world systems. The Nexari Collective's metal representative made musical sounds that translated as dismissive laughter. "Elementary defensive actions. Any civilized species could have done the same." "Could they?" Tae-jun asked, and the display changed again. This time it showed comparative casualty figures. When the Void Hunters attacked Velkara Prime, the Federation lost 60% of the defending fleet and 30,000 civilians. When they attacked New Sol Colony with twice as many ships, humans lost 3 fighter craft and 0 civilians. Every person was evacuated safely. The hall grew quieter. Several alien representatives were studying the numbers with new interest. "Furthermore," Tae-jun continued, "human colonies have provided refuge for over 2 million displaced beings from 47 different species. We have offered medical aid, technological assistance, and emergency evacuation services to anyone who needed help, regardless of their political affiliations or Federation membership status." Song Ye-jin, the human intelligence operative, had spent months gathering this information. Every favor humans had done, every life they had saved, every contribution they had made to galactic stability. The Federation had never bothered to add it all up, but humans had kept careful records. The tree-like representative who had spoken 50 years ago about buffer zones shifted uncomfortably. The humans were assigned to frontier duties. They have performed adequately. Adequately? Tae-jun's voice grew harder. We have turned the Outer Rim from a lawless wasteland into the most stable region of Federation space. Trade routes that were considered too dangerous to patrol are now safe enough for civilian traffic. We did this with outdated equipment and no support from the core worlds. The Valkyrie representative waved his arms impatiently. Enough of this presentation. The Federation has made its requirements clear. Human technological innovations must be shared with the galactic community. Human children must receive proper education at Federation academies. These are not requests. The hall fell completely silent. Even the translator devices seemed to pause before converting the words into human language. Tae-jun looked around the assembly, meeting the eyes of each alien representative. When he spoke again, his voice was calm but carried the weight of absolute certainty. No. The single word echoed in the vast space. Several aliens made sounds of shock or disbelief. The humans refuse, asked the council speaker, its lights flickering in patterns that indicated confusion. We refuse, Tae-jun confirmed. We will not hand over our technology to beings who have spent 50 years treating us like disposable tools. We will not send our children to academies run by species who consider them inferior. We will not pretend anymore that this relationship benefits anyone except the Federation. Chaos erupted in the hall. Aliens were shouting, making angry sounds in dozens of languages. The Valkyrie representative was on his feet, all four arms gesturing wildly. This is rebellion, he declared. The humans dare to defy the lawful authority of the Galactic Federation. What lawful authority? Tae-jun asked, and his voice cut through the noise like a blade. You gave us associate membership, which means we have the right to govern our own internal affairs. You assigned us to the Outer Rim, which means you acknowledged that we could manage our own territory. We have broken no Federation laws because we have chosen not to give you things that were never yours to take. The council speaker's lights pulsed rapidly as it tried to restore order. The humans will reconsider this position. Economic sanctions will be imposed immediately. All trade with human colonies is suspended. All Federation support for Outer Rim operations is terminated. Tae-jun smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. Honored Speaker, what trade? What support? We have been economically independent for 30 years. The Federation buys more from us than we buy from you. As for support, when was the last time the core world sent meaningful aid to the Outer Rim? The truth of his words was obvious to everyone in the hall. The Federation had treated human space as a convenient dumping ground for problems they didn't want to deal with. They had provided minimal assistance while taking credit for human successes and ignoring human sacrifices. The humans have one day to reconsider, announced the Valkyrie representative. If they do not comply, the Federation will take appropriate action to ensure galactic security. And what action would that be? Tae-jun asked. Will you send fleets to attack the colonies that have been protecting your borders for 50 years? Will you destroy the infrastructure that keeps the Outer Rim stable? Will you murder the people who have saved millions of Federation citizens from pirates and raiders? The questions hung in the air like accusations. Several alien representatives were looking uncomfortable, as if they were finally realizing what they were actually threatening to do. One day, repeated the Valkyrie representative stubbornly. Tae-jun nodded politely. One day it is. He deactivated his holographic display and walked toward the exit, but stopped before leaving the hall. Honored council members, he said, turning back to face them one final time. 50 years ago, a human named Kim Dae-ho stood in this same spot. He was hoping for partnership, for mutual respect, for the chance to contribute to something greater than ourselves. You chose to give us exile instead. His voice grew softer, but somehow that made it more frightening than if he had shouted. Dae-ho died last year, still believing that this could have worked out differently. still hoping that you would eventually see humans as equals rather than tools. I want you to know that his faith in your better nature was the only thing that kept our two civilizations from reaching this point sooner. Taejun began walking toward the exit again, then paused one more time. We kept records of everything, by the way. Every slight, every insult, every time you treated human lives as expendable, every opportunity for cooperation that you wasted because of your arrogance. History will remember which of us tried to build bridges and which of us chose to burn them. With that, he left the hall. Behind him, the Federation Council erupted into arguments and accusations. Some representatives demanded immediate military action against the humans. Others questioned whether this was really the best course of action. A few wondered quietly if they had made a terrible mistake. 23 hours later, every human presence in Federation space vanished simultaneously. Colonies that had taken decades to build were abandoned in a matter of hours. Work crews simply walked away from their jobs. Ships that had been docked at Federation stations disappeared into hyperspace. Even the human embassy staff left quietly, taking only personal belongings and leaving behind polite notes thanking their hosts for their hospitality. The coordinated exodus was possible because of the secret communication network that Park Soo-jin had built over the decades. Every human colony, every ship, every settlement had received the same message at the same time. Come home. Jang Kyung-ho, now the senior fleet commander for all human forces, watched from the bridge of the flagship as the last transport ships cleared Federation space. Behind them, they left empty buildings, silent machinery, and a few automated messages playing on repeat. Message from the Federation Council, reported his communications officer. They're demanding to know where we've gone. Kyung-ho smiled grimly. Tell them we've gone somewhere we can build the future we want, instead of the future they chose for us. The human fleet jumped to hyperspace, leaving the Federation to discover just how much they had depended on the species they had never bothered to respect. In the Outer Rim, the Void Hunters were already gathering for their largest offensive in centuries, sensing weakness in their old enemy. Ambassador Veltar of the Velkari Empire stood in what had once been the main trading station of Kepler 442, staring at empty corridors that should have been full of busy workers. The silence was worse than any sound he had ever heard. 6 months had passed since the humans had simply vanished, and the consequences were spreading through Federation space like a plague. At first, the Council had celebrated. They had finally rid themselves of the troublesome humans and their annoying independence. The Outer Rim was quiet. Everything seemed fine. But then the maintenance reports started coming in. Technician Kixara, a member of the advanced Nexari collective, floated beside Veltar as they examined the station's central power core. The metal being's musical voice had lost all its usual arrogance and now carried only frustration. I do not understand how they did it, Kixara admitted, manipulating the controls with delicate metal appendages. This system should be impossible to maintain with such primitive technology. Yet it ran perfectly for 50 years under human management. Veltar examined the diagnostic readouts with growing unease. The humans had taken their technology and their people, but they had left behind the infrastructure they had built. Power, stations, communication arrays, defensive platforms, trade facilities. Everything humanity had constructed during their exile remained in place. The problem was that none of it worked anymore. The Therian Commonwealth has filed another complaint, Veltar reported, consulting his datapad. Their mining operations on Proxima 7 have shut down completely. The human-designed extraction system stopped working 3 days ago. Have they tried bringing in their own technicians? Asked Kixara. Of course, but the systems refuse to interface with standard Federation protocols. It is as if the humans designed everything to only work for them. This was becoming a pattern across former human territory. The infrastructure remained, but it was somehow locked against anyone who tried to use it. Federation engineers could examine the equipment, but they could not operate it. The technology was too integrated, too dependent on human approaches to problem-solving, too different from standard galactic designs. A communication alert sounded, and General Morden's face appeared on the main display. The military commander looked tired and angry, which had become his default expression since the humans disappeared. Ambassador Veltar, I need to speak with you about the Void Hunter situation. Morden announced without preamble. What situation? Veltar asked, though he suspected he already knew. 3 more systems have gone dark in the last week. The hunters are moving deeper into former Federation territory than ever before. My fleets are taking heavy casualties. The holographic display shifted to show a tactical map of the region. Red markers indicated Void Hunter attacks, and there were far too many of them. Worse, they were getting closer to core Federation worlds with each passing day. Where are your early warning systems? Kixara asked. Gone, Mordoon replied grimly. The humans maintained all the sensor networks in the Outer Rim. When they left, they took the monitoring data with them. We are flying blind out here. Veltar felt a chill of real fear. For the first time in his long life, the Federation seemed vulnerable. How many ships have we lost? 47 in the last month alone. The hunters are using new tactics, new weapons. Our standard battle plans are not working anymore. What do you mean, new tactics? Kixara demanded. Mordoon's expression grew even darker. I mean, they are fighting like humans did. Quick strikes, unpredictable movements, using our own assumptions against us. It is as if they learned from watching the humans defend the Outer Rim all these years. The connection ended, leaving Veltar and Kixara alone with their thoughts. Around them, the empty station seemed to mock their predicament with its silent efficiency. Even without power, even without operators, the human-built structure was more elegant and functional than most Federation designs. There is something else, Kixara said quietly. The economic reports from the core worlds are troubling. Veltar accessed the latest data and felt his blood pressure rise as he read. Trade routes that had operated smoothly for decades were now experiencing constant problems. Cargo ships were being attacked by pirates who seemed to know exactly when and where to strike. Supply chains that had been perfectly reliable were breaking down in cascading failures. How is this possible? He demanded. The humans were only responsible for frontier security. Were they? Kixara asked. I have been reviewing historical records. The humans were involved in far more operations than anyone realized. They provided route planning, resource management, diplomatic assistance, technical support. They were everywhere. The scope of human involvement in galactic civilization was only now becoming clear. They had not just been frontier guards and manual laborers. They had been the ones who made everything work smoothly, the ones who solved problems before they became crises, the ones who kept the complicated machinery of interstellar society running. And now they were gone. A priority alert flashed on Veltar's communicator. It was from the Drexari Republic, one of the Federation's most stable member worlds. Ambassador, came the frantic voice of the Drexari representative, we need immediate assistance. Our colony on Vega 9 has declared independence and is threatening to join something called the Free Worlds Alliance. They say they have been in secret contact with other dissident systems for months. Veltar closed his eyes. The Free Worlds Alliance was a nightmare scenario the Federation had always feared, member species abandoning galactic unity to form their own competing organizations. Without the stabilizing influence of human mediation and the security of human protection, old conflicts were resurging and new rebellions were starting. How many systems have declared independence? He asked, dreading the answer. 17 so far, with more threatening to follow. They all cite the same reasons. Federation failures to provide adequate security, economic mismanagement, and they say they want to find the humans. Find the humans? Kixara asked in confusion. Apparently, refugees and dissidents have been spreading stories about human colonies that welcome anyone, provide real protection, and treat all species equally. They want to join this human civilization instead of remaining in the Federation. Veltar felt something that might have been panic beginning to build in his chest. Begin a galaxy-wide search immediately. Deploy every available ship. We must locate the human colonies. Sir, the Drexari representative said nervously. We have been searching for 6 months. We have found nothing. It is as if they simply vanished from the galaxy entirely. After the communication ended, Veltar and Kixara stood in silence for a long time. Around them, the empty station hummed with the sound of systems they could not understand, built by people they had driven away. We made a mistake, Kixara said finally. Veltar nodded slowly. We made many mistakes. The question now is whether we can survive them. Outside the station's windows, space was darker than it had ever been. The stars seemed dimmer, the void between them deeper and more threatening. Somewhere out there, the Void Hunters were gathering for their largest assault in centuries. Somewhere else, Federation member worlds were abandoning the galactic community in search of something better. And somewhere beyond both, humanity was building a new civilization that the old galaxy could not see, could not find, and could not understand. The Federation had ignored humanity's worth for 50 years, dismissing them as primitive and useful only for manual labor. Now they were learning the price of that ignorance. But it might already be too late to pay it. Explorer. Captain Zandri had searched for humans across 17 star systems and found nothing but empty space and unanswered questions. Her sleek Federation ship, equipped with the most advanced sensors the galactic community could build, had detected no trace of human colonies, human ships, or human civilization anywhere in the known galaxy. It was as if an entire species had simply stopped existing. "Captain," called her science officer, a crystalline being whose thoughts created rainbow patterns across his faceted surface. "We are receiving another report from the core worlds. The Void Hunters have broken through the Kepler defense line." Zandri closed her multifaceted eyes and tried to process the implications. The Kepler defense line had been considered impregnable, a barrier of space fortresses and automated weapons that could stop any invasion. It had fallen in 3 days. "How many casualties?" she asked. "Preliminary reports suggest complete destruction of the defending fleet. 68 ships lost, including 2 Federation dreadnoughts. The Hunters are now only 4 jump points away from Velcara Prime. 2 years of searching, and this was what they had to show for it. The Federation was collapsing while they chased ghosts across empty space. Dr. Kyle Wen, the expedition's chief scientist, believed they would find humans eventually. Council leader Thexion, who had authorized this massive search operation, was beginning to doubt whether there was anything left to find. "Captain," the science officer continued, "we are also receiving distress calls from the Frontier Emergency Network. 3 merchant convoys have been rescued by unknown vessels in the past week. This was the strangest part of the whole situation. While the Federation searched desperately for any sign of humanity, reports kept coming in of mysterious saviors appearing at the edge of civilized space, ships with technology that should not exist, helping civilians and then vanishing before anyone could identify them." "Show me the latest reports," Zandri ordered. A holographic display materialized, showing sensor data from the rescue operations. The ships that had appeared were clearly artificial, but their energy signatures were unlike anything in Federation databases. They moved faster than should be possible, operated with impossible efficiency, and disappeared using methods that violated known laws of physics. The survivors described the rescue crews as humanoid, Dr. Kyle Wen reported from her research station. Bipedal, bilateral symmetry, the standard human configuration. But they wear environmental suits that hide their faces, and they speak only in standard galactic languages. "Could they be humans?" asked the science officer. "If they are, their technology has advanced far beyond anything we thought possible," Kilwen replied. "These ships operate on principles we do not understand." Zandri studied the data with growing frustration. Every lead ended in more questions. Every trail went cold. It was as if humans had not just left Federation space, but had transcended into something beyond the galaxy's ability to detect or comprehend. "Captain," announced the communications officer, "we are receiving a priority transmission from Federation. Command! Council Leader Thexion wants to speak with you directly." The main display activated, showing the aged form of Thexion in his government chambers. The council leader looked like he had not slept in weeks, and his usual confident demeanor had been replaced by something approaching desperation. "Captain Zandri," he began without preamble, "I need you to redirect your search to the Epsilon Eridani system. We have discovered something that might be significant." "What kind of something?" Zandri asked. "A monument. The only human structure we have been able to locate in 2 years of searching." The search fleet changed course immediately, jumping through hyperspace toward coordinates that had once been on the very edge of human territory. When they emerged near Epsilon Eridani, Zandri found herself looking at something she had never expected to see. It was a space station, clearly of human design, but unlike anything humans had built during their time in Federation space. It was beautiful in a way that touched something deep in the observer's mind, elegant and purposeful and somehow alive. But it was also clearly inactive, a memorial rather than a living facility. "Scanning now," reported the science officer. "The station is powered, but appears to be automated. No life signs, but there are active computer systems." "Can we dock?" Zandri asked. "The station is sending an invitation signal. It appears to be designed to receive visitors." The docking process was smooth and oddly comforting, as if the station had been waiting specifically for them. Zandri led a small team aboard, including Dr. Keelwen and 2 security officers. The corridors they walked through were filled with a gentle light that seemed to come from the walls themselves. At the center of the station, they found a large chamber dominated by a single chair facing a massive viewing screen. In the chair sat a recording device, obviously placed there for visitors to find. "Should we activate it?" Dr. Keelwen asked. Zandri nodded, and the screen came to life. The face that appeared was aged and weathered, but the eyes were sharp and filled with intelligence. It was clearly human, but something about the person seemed different from the humans the Federation had known. "Greetings," the recorded figure said in accented galactic standard. "I am Kim Dae-ho, and if you are watching this, then you are looking for my people." Zandri felt a chill of recognition. Kim Dae-ho had been the first human ambassador to the Federation, the one who had stood before the Council decades ago asking for partnership and receiving exile instead. "By now, you have discovered that we are gone," the recording continued. "Not destroyed, not hiding, but truly gone from the galaxy, you know. We have found something better than what you offered us." The image changed, showing vistas of impossible beauty. Worlds where multiple species lived in harmony, cities that seemed to grow rather than be built, ships that moved like living creatures through space that looked subtly different from normal space. "We found the ancients," Dae-ho's voice explained. "The first civilization, the ones who built the galaxy's foundation and then moved beyond physical reality millions of years ago. They have been waiting for a species mature enough to join them in the next phase of existence." Zandri exchanged glances with Dr. Keelwen. The ancients were myth, legend, stories told to children about godlike beings who had shaped the galaxy in prehistoric times. "They taught us that advancement is not about technology or power," the recording continued. "It is about wisdom, cooperation, and the willingness to help others reach their potential. We spent 50 years learning these lessons in exile, and when we were ready, they invited us to join them." The images showed human families living alongside beings of pure energy, children playing in gardens that existed in folded space, and technologies that seemed more like art than engineering. "We have not abandoned the galaxy," Dae-ho said, his old face serious. "We still help those in need, still rescue the lost, and protect the innocent. But we do it from beyond your ability to detect or interfere with." The screen showed recent rescue operations. The same mysterious ships that had been reported across Federation space, crewed by beings in environmental suits who spoke little and helped much. "To the Federation Council, if you are watching this," Dae-ho continued, "we offer you the same choice we offer everyone. Abandon your pursuit of dominance and control. Learn to cooperate as equals with all sentient life. Prove that you can grow beyond your current limitations. And perhaps someday you will be ready to join us in what comes next." The recording began to fade, but Dae-ho's voice remained strong. "To those who are suffering under Federation rule, to those who dream of something better, to those who believe that all sapient beings deserve dignity and freedom, we have not forgotten you. We are building a place where species work together, not because they are forced to, but because they choose to. When you are ready, we will be waiting." The screen went dark, leaving the search team alone with their thoughts. "Captain," Dr. Keelwen said quietly, "if this is true, if humans have actually transcended normal space-time, then they are no longer the primitive species we thought we knew," Zandri finished. "They have become something we cannot understand, cannot control, and cannot defeat." Outside the station, the stars seemed different somehow, as if the universe itself had changed while they were not looking. Somewhere beyond the boundaries of known space, humanity was building a new kind of civilization. And somewhere in normal space, the Federation was learning that some mistakes cannot be undone. But perhaps, if they were willing to learn and grow, they might someday be forgiven. Council Speaker Luxara watched the destruction of the Velkara defense fleet through the main viewing screen of the Federation Command Center, her bioluminescent patterns flickering with patterns that meant despair and defeat. In 3 years of searching for humanity, the Federation had found only empty space and recorded messages. Meanwhile, the Void Hunters had grown bolder, stronger, and more coordinated than ever before. "The outer defense grid has fallen," reported General Morden, his voice hollow with exhaustion. "The Hunters will reach Velkara Prime within 6 hours." Around the command center, representatives from dozens of species worked frantically at their stations. But everyone knew it was hopeless. The Federation's most powerful fleet had been destroyed in less than a day. The enemy was using tactics and weapons that seemed to anticipate every defensive strategy. "How many evacuation ships do we have?" asked Ambassador Veltar, his arms moving in gestures of barely controlled panic. "Not enough," Morden replied grimly. "We can evacuate perhaps 10% of the population before the Hunters arrive." Luxara closed her eyes and tried to accept what was about to happen. The capital world of the Federation, home to billions of beings, was about to fall to an enemy they barely understood, all because they had been too proud to appreciate the value of a species they considered primitive. "Incoming transmission," announced the communications officer suddenly. "Unknown origin, but the signal is strange." "Strange how?" Veltar demanded. "It is coming from everywhere at once, as if it is being broadcast from multiple dimensions simultaneously." The main screen activated, and the face that appeared was both familiar and completely alien. It was clearly human. But the person seemed to exist in a space that was not quite normal space. Behind him, impossible geometries shifted and flowed like living art. "Federation Council," the human said, and his voice carried harmonics that no normal vocal chords could produce. "I am Shindong Hyuk, speaking for the Galactic Cooperative." Luxara felt her biological system surge with something between hope and terror. After 3 years of searching, humanity had finally chosen to reveal themselves. "The Void Hunters are not your enemies," Dong Hyuk continued, his form flickering slightly as if he existed in several realities at once. "They are refugees, survivors of a galactic catastrophe that destroyed their home region millions of years ago. They attack because they are desperate and afraid, not because they are evil." On the tactical displays, the approaching enemy fleet continued its relentless advance toward Velkara Prime, thousands of ships that had haunted Federation nightmares for generations. "We have been trying to communicate with them for decades," the human explained. "They have been running from something so terrible that they cannot trust anyone, cannot stop moving, cannot allow themselves to be vulnerable. But today, they have finally agreed to listen." The screen split, showing the human on one side and something incredible on the other. It was clearly a Void Hunter, but not like anything the Federation had ever seen. Instead of the terrifying war machines of their nightmares, this being looked tired, ancient, and deeply sad. "This is Nexus Prime of the Void," Dong Hyuk said. "Elder of the Hunter fleets and survivor of the great silence that consumed their home galaxy. They have been seeking a new place to live for longer than most civilizations have existed." The alien being spoke in a voice like breaking stars. Through translation fields that seemed to work perfectly, despite using no recognizable technology, its words became understandable. "We have caused great harm," it said, and there was genuine regret in its terrible voice. "Fear made us into monsters. We took from others what we could not earn through cooperation. We are ashamed." General Morden was staring at the screen in disbelief. "This is impossible. The Void Hunters are savages, destroyers. They have attacked us for centuries." "They attacked because they were dying," Dong Hyuk replied. "Their ships are falling apart, their population is declining, and they have nowhere to go. They raid because it is the only way they know to survive." The tactical display updated, showing the Hunter fleet slowing its approach. Instead of preparing for battle, the ships were beginning to form what looked almost like a defensive formation. "We offer them sanctuary," the human continued. Worlds beyond normal space where they can rebuild their civilization without threatening others. In return, they offer their knowledge and their service in protecting the galaxy from the true threat that destroyed their home. What true threat? Luxara asked, though she was not sure she wanted to know the answer. The screen changed again, showing something that made every being in the command center recoil in instinctive horror. It was a void in space, but not an empty void. This was a hungry darkness that consumed matter, energy, and even the concept of existence itself. The Devourers, Dong Hyuk said simply. Entities from outside reality that consume entire galaxies. They destroyed the Hunter's home and have been moving this way ever since. They will arrive in approximately 200 years. Silence fell over the command center as the implication sank in. The Void Hunters had not been the threat. They had been running from the real threat, and now that threat was coming for everyone. The Galactic Cooperative has been preparing for this battle, the human continued. We have technologies and allies that exist beyond normal physics, but we cannot do it alone. We need every intelligent species working together if we hope to survive what is coming. Elder Park Soo-jin appeared on the screen beside Dong Hyuk. She was impossibly old by human standards, but her eyes were bright with wisdom and determination. We offer the Federation membership in the cooperative, she said. Not as subjects or vassals, but as equals. We will share our knowledge, our technology, and our protection freely. In return, we ask only that you abandon the arrogance that has divided the galaxy for so long. Luxara looked around the command center at her fellow council members. They were all thinking the same thing. This was not the humanity they remembered. These beings had transcended their original limitations and become something magnificent. What happened to you? Veltar asked quietly. How did you become this? Soo-jin smiled, and despite her impossible age, there was something young and hopeful in her expression. We learned what you tried to teach us in your own way, that we were not ready to be part of galactic civilization as we were. So we grew. We evolved. We became worthy of the universe we wanted to inherit. The approach alarms had stopped sounding. On the tactical display, the Void Hunter fleet was no longer advancing. Instead, strange new ships were appearing. Vessels that seemed to be made of crystallized space itself, crewed by beings of pure energy. The ancients have decided to intervene directly, Dong Hyuk explained. For the first time in millions of years, they will take physical action to protect this galaxy, but only if all sentient species agree to work together. An impossible battle began above Velkara Prime, but not the battle anyone had expected. Instead of destruction, it was a demonstration of what could be achieved through cooperation. Human ships worked alongside ancient vessels and reformed hunter fleets to create something beautiful and terrifying. A unified defense that turned space itself into a weapon against entropy. When it was over, the Void Hunters had been welcomed into normal space for the first time in millennia. The Federation's most dangerous enemies had become their newest allies, and humanity stood revealed not as the primitive species that had been driven away, but as the teachers and guides that the galaxy desperately needed. The choice is yours, Soo-jin said to the assembled council. You can join us in building something better than what came before. Or you can remain in the small corner of space you still control, safe but alone, until the Devourers arrive. Xara did not need to consult with her fellow council members. The answer was obvious, had been obvious for years if they had been humble enough to see it. We accept, she said. We join the Galactic Cooperative. We apologize for our blindness. Soo-jin's smile became even brighter. Apologies are not necessary. Growth is, learning is, the willingness to become better than you were. That is all anyone can ask. Years later, children who had never known the old Federation would learn in their integrated schools about the time when different species fought each other for dominance instead of working together for mutual benefit. They would study the historical records and wonder how anyone could have been so foolish as to ignore humanity's worth. But their teachers, both human and alien, would explain that wisdom often comes through making mistakes and learning from them. The galaxy had been forced to pay the full cost of ignoring humanity's value, but in the end, that payment had led to something far greater than anyone had imagined possible. The universe was vast and full of wonders, and now all its children were free to explore it together.